A huge moment for Alex Eala. Great respect as well, as ever, from Jess Pegula, who's a beaten player today and well beaten.
There are championship victories, and then there are victories that change what an entire country believes is possible. On an unforgettable afternoon in Washington, D.C., Alex Eala stood at the baseline, preparing to serve for the biggest title of her career. Across the net was Jessica Pegula, the world number 3, and one of the most accomplished hardcourt players on the WTA Tour. Only a week earlier, few people imagined this final would even happen. Now, one game separated a 21-year-old from the Philippines. From a place in tennis history, when the final point ended, the celebration wasn't confined to one stadium. Filipino flags filled the stands, cheers echoed through the American capital. Across the Philippines, thousands who had stayed awake through the night watched a moment they had never witnessed before. For the first time in the Open era, a Filipino player had captured a WTA Tour singles title. To many people, it looked like the ending of an extraordinary week, but it wasn't. It was the reward for a journey that had begun years earlier. Far away from television cameras, packed stadiums, and championship trophies. Long before Alex defeated Olympic champions and Grand Slam winners, there was a difficult decision that changed the course of her life. She was born into a family that understood competition. Her mother had represented the Philippines in international swimming, and sport was already part of everyday life. Tennis quickly became more than an after-school activity. Her talent was obvious, but talent alone wasn't enough. The problem wasn't Alex, it was geography. Unlike countries with long-established tennis systems, the Philippines offered very few opportunities for a young player dreaming of the professional tour. There were no generations of Filipino champions showing the way forward, no proven pathway from local courts to the biggest tournaments in the world. Her family realized something difficult. If Alex wanted to compete with the world's best, she couldn't stay where she was. While most children her age were growing up surrounded by friends and family, Alex packed her bags and moved thousands of kilometers away to Spain, joining the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca. It was an extraordinary sacrifice for someone so young, new country, new language, new routines, a completely different life. Every birthday missed at home, every holiday spent away from family, every ordinary childhood moment became another small price paid for an uncertain dream. Nothing guaranteed that those sacrifices would lead anywhere. Professional tennis offers no promises. Every year, gifted juniors arrive believing they'll become stars. Most never do. Alex began climbing through the lowest levels of professional tennis, competing at small ITF tournaments where the crowds were tiny and the attention almost non-existent. There were no headlines celebrating those victories, no packed grandstands. Often, there weren't many people watching at all. But those tournaments taught lessons that junior championships never could. Winning when nobody knows your name. Traveling from one country to another with little rest, accepting early defeats, and preparing for the next event anyway. Learning that success at the professional level isn't built through one spectacular performance, it's built through hundreds of ordinary days that almost nobody ever sees. Those years rarely appear in highlight videos. Yet without them, Washington never happens, because championships aren't won only in finals, they're earned in the quiet years, when nobody is paying attention. And for Alex Eala, those quiet years were about to face their greatest test. The hardest part of Alex Ayala's journey wasn't leaving home, it was surviving everything that came after. From the outside, success in tennis often looks straightforward. A talented junior wins tournaments, climbs the rankings, and eventually reaches the biggest stages. Reality is rarely that simple. Professional tennis has a habit of exposing every weakness a young player has. The opponents are stronger, the travel is relentless. Confidence rises and falls every week. One tournament can make you believe you're close to the top. The next can make you question whether you'll ever get there. Alex discovered that reality almost immediately. Her junior career had earned international attention. But professional tennis offered no special treatment. Every ranking point had to be earned. Every match started at 0, regardless of what she had achieved before. She spent weeks moving from one small tournament to another, often playing in front of almost empty stands. There were no television crews waiting outside the court, no packed stadiums chanting her name. Just another match, another airport, another hotel, another opportunity to move one step higher. Sometimes those steps came, sometimes they didn't. In 2022, she captured her first professional singles title at a modest ITF event in Thailand. It was an important milestone, But outside the small circle of people following her career, almost nobody noticed. The trophy didn't suddenly transform her ranking or guarantee a faster path to the WTA Tour. It simply proved she belonged in the fight. Then came an even bigger challenge, the Grand Slams. For every player, qualifying for a major is a milestone. For those outside the world's elite, even reaching the main draw can feel like climbing a mountain. Alex's first attempts ended in disappointment. Early exits, painful defeats, long flights home, carrying more questions than answers. Those losses never made headlines, but they mattered because every defeat forced another decision. Keep believing, or begin wondering if the dream was slipping further away. That uncertainty is where many promising careers quietly disappear, not because the talent isn't there, because the climb becomes too expensive, too exhausting, too uncertain. Alex kept climbing then. In March 2025, something changed. She arrived at the Miami Open with a wild card and almost no expectations from the wider tennis world. Within days, everyone knew her name. She defeated Grand Slam champions. She eliminated world number 2 Iga Swiatek. She became the first Filipino player to reach the semifinals of a WTA 1000 event. It felt like a breakthrough powerful enough to change everything overnight. But tennis has a cruel way of testing every breakthrough. One extraordinary tournament creates excitement. The next few months determine whether it was real. Alex's run ended against Jessica Pegula, who proved that reaching the final stages of the biggest tournaments requires more than one remarkable week. The question suddenly changed. No longer, can Alex beat great players? Everyone had just watched her do exactly that. The new question became much more difficult. Could she do it again? The months that followed refused to offer an easy answer. There were impressive victories. There were frustrating defeats. She reached another final and walked away without the trophy. She experienced the disappointment every young player eventually faces. The realization that getting close to history doesn't always mean making it. For many athletes, those moments leave scars. For Alex, they became lessons. She wasn't trying to become the player who could produce one unforgettable tournament. She was becoming the player who could repeat that level again and again. By the time the 2026 season arrived, the signs were becoming impossible to ignore. Berlin brought victories over Elena Rybakina and Elina Svitolina. Wimbledon delivered perhaps the biggest shock of the tournament, when she eliminated defending champion Iga Swiatek and reached the second week of a Grand Slam for the first time. Then came Washington, an Olympic gold medalist, a defending champion, a world top 10 player, a 4-time Grand Slam champion. Each round presented a different challenge. Each round demanded a different solution, and with every victory, one old question quietly disappeared. People stopped asking whether Miami had been a lucky run. They stopped wondering whether Wimbledon had been a one-off performance. Alex Eala had spent years trying to prove she belonged among the world's best. Washington wasn't creating that player. It was simply revealing the one she had already become. And now, only one opponent remained between Alex Eala and the moment that would change Philippine tennis forever. By the time Alex Eala walked back onto the court the following afternoon, the match no longer felt like an ordinary final. It had become a test of everything she had spent years building. Jessica Pegula had every reason to feel comfortable. She had already won the opening set. She had played more than 20 WTA finals in her career. She was competing on her favorite surface, at one of her favorite tournaments, in front of a home crowd. On paper, almost every advantage still belonged to the American. Alex's advantage couldn't be measured on paper. It came from experience of a different kind. Not the experience of winning championships, the experience of surviving disappointment, of rebuilding after losses, of refusing to let one difficult moment define the next one. When play resumed, she looked nothing like a player carrying the weight of history. She looked free. The hesitation that had appeared late in the opening set was gone. She attacked Pegula's second serve with confidence. She stepped inside the baseline earlier. She took time away from one of the best hardcourt players in the world and forced the world number 3 to react instead of dictate. The second set belonged to Alex. She leveled the match, and suddenly, the pressure had changed sides. For the first time all afternoon, Jessica Pegula wasn't protecting a lead. She was trying to stop a player who seemed to grow stronger with every passing game. Then came the deciding set. Championship matches are usually remembered for their tension. Long rallies, nervous service games, tiny margins deciding enormous moments. This wasn't one of those finals. What happened next shocked everyone watching. Alex didn't simply edge ahead. She completely took over the match. Game after game, she played with remarkable clarity, refusing to give Pegula any opportunity to recover. The rallies became shorter, the winners became cleaner, the confidence became unmistakable by the time championship point arrived. The scoreboard showed something almost impossible to believe: 6 games to love, against the world number 3. In the biggest final of her career, it wasn't merely a victory, it was one of the most dominant deciding sets of the entire WTA season. When the final point landed, Alex looked toward her team. Before raising her arms, around the stadium, Filipino flags filled the stands. Thousands of miles away, celebrations erupted across the Philippines. For many supporters, this wasn't just another sporting achievement. It was history finally arriving. For more than 5 decades, no Filipino had lifted a WTA Tour singles trophy. Now, that wait was over. But perhaps the most important thing Washington changed wasn't a record book. It was belief. For years, young Filipino players had grown up without seeing someone from their own country win at the highest level of professional tennis. Alex had once been one of those children. She had searched for inspiration in players from other nations, because there was no Filipino champion to follow. Now, that reality has changed forever. The next generation won't need to imagine